You probably could have bought a house with down payment assistance. And if you're anything like a lot of people, you're probably regretting right now that you didn't. So what I'm going to do is actually run through down payment assistance and specifically cal-hfa today and talk to you about when it's useful to use, when you should use it, when you shouldn't use it, who it's really for, and the stipulations behind how it actually works. So I'm Jake from Home Loans. Thanks for coming to check out the channel. I hope this video answers a lot of your questions today, and let's dive on it. So down payment assistance is a really good option for a lot of people out there, and a lot more people qualify than you'd actually think. And specifically cal-hfa's program, I work with it a lot and I love it because it's got a lot of really good benefits without having too much negative on it. Now, obviously there's going to be good and bad for both, but really diving in, first of all, what is down payment assistance? Now, down payment assistance is a second loan. So the first loan is your first mortgage. Your second loan is you're actually borrowing the down payment. So it's a separate loan that covers your down payment. Now, the way it works with cal-hfa's down payment assistance is it has a simple interest of 1% per year. So let's say your down payment was $15,000 is what you borrowed. That's a simple interest of 1% per year. So it's non-compounding. So you're paying $150 per year to have that second loan. That's really, really low interest. So borrowing this money at a 1% interest rate is interesting because it allows you to really use that money and buy a home with almost nothing out of pocket. Now, cal-hfa's down payment assistance works as you're actually not paying anything monthly. It's what's known as a silent second mortgage. So being silent, it means that you're not paying on it monthly. You don't feel it. You don't hear it, and they're not reaching out to you about paying back the mortgage. It just sits there. Now, you do have to pay it back in full. It's not a grant, but you can either pay it back when you sell the home, refinance the home, or if you never refinance this house, you have to pay it off when you close on the home or when you actually finish paying off your loan in that 30 years. So really cool program because of that. It allows you to do a lot with not a whole lot up front. So that's the basics of what this program is. What are the drawbacks? Now, the first drawback I can think of is there is a fee to use it. Basically, lenders have to get paid on these, so they input a fee. I've seen anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5%, depending on the lender and the fee that they charge. So there is a fee to use it because that is the only way the lender does get paid on. Besides the lender fee, you can't always refinance out of these right away. Now, obviously, in the last couple of years, we've had a pretty crazy shift in the market back 2020, 2021. If you use this loan, within 6 months, you could refinance and actually use the equity of the home probably to pay off the whole second mortgage, as well as have more equity in the home. That's not the case in a normal market, and it really shouldn't be the case because prices are just shooting up way too fast. Basically, when you use these down payment assistance loans, in order to refinance, you have to either pay off the second mortgage amount, so you get paid out of pocket, or you have to have enough equity in the home to be able to use that loan to pay it off. So if you buy a home at $350,000 and you borrowed that 3.5%, so that around that 10 or 11 grand, when you refinance the home, you have to get an appraisal proving you now have enough equity to pay that off and still have the right loan to value amount. So you most likely need to get an appraisal about 10 to 15, maybe even 20 over, depending on your cost for the loan. So that is a downside of down payment assistance. Lastly, you cannot buy down your rate with down payment assistance. They are a guaranteed rate. I'm going to link below the website. You can check every single day. Anybody can see it, not just lenders, of what the rate is for that day with down payment assistance. Now, with that being said, the rate does change, but not nearly as much as a normal interest rate. You listen to me talk that I say rates change at least once a day, every single day, because they are based on a market that's constantly shifting, just like stocks. So with down payment assistance, when you have a rate, you're pulling it up and you can see the rate for that day. They will change, but it's not going to change nearly as often. A lot of times you'll see it sit for a week or two and then change depending on where the market goes. But you cannot buy down your rate. So if you get a large seller's credit and you wanted to, you can't buy down your rate. You are stuck at whatever rate you locked in at for the down payment assistance loan. Now, the next question we'll be answering is, who is this for? Now, in my opinion, the best way to use this loan is if you're someone who makes pretty good money to where you can afford a monthly payment, but you've had a hard time saving. Maybe you've been paying off a lot of credit card debt. Maybe just in general, life keeps popping up and you can't really put a ton of money into savings at any given time. But in general, These loans are often for the people that have a hard time saving the extra cash in order to buy a home because it's not cheap. And that's the one thing I always like to say is your money grows at a slower rate in your pocket than it would in a house. So when you think about down payment assistance like that, if you wait a year and a half to buy a home until you get that 30 or 40,000 in your pocket so you can purchase, the amount that home is going to grow in that amount of time is almost as much as you've been saving. So that $500,000 house, let's say we're averaging 4% a year increase on that, is probably going to increase around $20,000 in the next year. So the year and a half that it took you to save that 30,000, you're now paying an extra $20,000 for the same house. So the benefit of down payment assistance is while you may not be able to refinance as soon as you want and dig into that equity, it is a stepping stone to get you started. It gets you started into your first home for almost no money out of pocket. And the way you set these up, and that's the next big thing I want to get into, is because they're not for everybody, you have to know how to set up an offer in order to use down payment assistance. And you have to be patient if you're using this program. Now, the reality is when you use a down payment assistance program, your lender and your realtor need to be on the same page. They cannot be guessing two different things. They can't not have a relationship. You want that realtor to know exactly your needs based on what the lender is telling them. And usually down payments does not make sense unless you're getting a large enough seller's credit to be able to pay for most of it. Now, this is not always the case. You don't have to use a seller's credit to pay for it. It will save you a little bit of money, but because of the fee it is to use it, plus you're still paying your closing costs, a lot of the time it doesn't save you as much as you'd think unless you can get a big seller's credit. Now, personally, the only time I truly recommend down payment assistance loan is if you can get a minimum of around a 2.5% to a 3% credit on a home. So oftentimes you're going to have to be patient for that. You're going to need to make sure that you're putting in offers on homes that the sellers are willing to do that. So sometimes they're a little less competitive homes. Sometimes they may not be in the perfect area. Sometimes also we have people actually put in offers over asking price to ask for that credit, because it makes more sense monthly payment wise for them because they can deal with the monthly payment, as I mentioned earlier, but they don't have the cash. So putting an offer over asking, as long as it appraises, you're actually able to roll that in and possibly ask for that seller's credit back. So when you're using down payment assistance, your lender and realtor need to be on the same team. And when we do down payment assistance loans here, I make sure the realtors know, hey, we have a minimum credit that we need to hit to make sense for these clients to buy this home, or else it's not going to make sense to use this program. It would make more sense for them to wait it out and save a bit more money and just pay it out of pocket. Another reason the realtor and the lender need to be on the same page when you're using down payment assistance, they need to know how to work together, is because the lender will make or break a down payment assistance loan depending on if they call the listing agent. Now, I've done a lot of down payment assistance loans in the last 2 years. When you've done a full pre-approval and you're actually able to close a loan on time or early, this means a ton. And what a lot of people don't understand is down payment assistance doesn't get re-underwritten once you finish the file. We underwrite everything in-house. We only send to cal-hfa for a final approval. They basically double check and make sure it hit the standards that they have and that everything matches. If it does, then you get approval. I've had approvals in less than a day. So these down payment assistance loans can be used competitively when it comes to terms, as well as competitively when it comes to offering over asking, as long as you get that appraisal coming in. And I can tell you right now, the reason we've got a lot of them accepted is because after we put in the offer, I personally call the listing agent and let them know that I've closed multiple down payment assistance loans in less than 21 days. I can write a competitive offer. I can write just as competitive an offer with the down payment assistance loan as most people can for their regular offers. Now, the big thing is calling that listing agent and making sure they understand this is not normal, that you're able to do this, because down payment assistance has a bad stigma around it of taking too long. So when you're looking at down payment assistance, talk to a lender that uses it, because a lot of people don't realize how to use down payment assistance. And I've closed multiple down payment assistance loans in less than 21 days. A lot of people are scared of that. Now, the other time it makes sense to use down payment assistance is when you have that savings account, but you don't necessarily want to tap into it. Now, I say this because unlike a lot of people out there that say using down payment assistance won't give you the same satisfaction as buying a home on your own, I completely disagree. A lot of the clients that I talk to, what makes the most sense for them is having a larger savings account and being able to keep that for any emergencies, especially on these first homes they're buying. They don't know what homeownership looks like yet. And especially that monthly payment is pushing it beyond when they feel comfortable. If they have 20 or 30,000 in the bank and they're able to move into a home with nothing out of pocket, it's going to make it a lot more feasible for them to feel like they can take that monthly payment and to be able to fix anything if there's anything wrong with the house after they move in. You should be willing to put that into it to make sure you're keeping improvements on it and not letting it fall by the wayside to make a major problem later. You should be keeping a lot of this cash on hand in order to help you out. So those are the two main scenarios where it makes sense to use down payment assistance. Is either you don't have the cash, but you feel like you can make the monthly payment, or you really want to keep the cash because you're concerned about the monthly payment and you're able to keep that all in your pocket. Now, for those to where it doesn't make sense to use down payment assistance, usually are the people that have more cash. I do not recommend down payment assistance if you have more than double of the minimum down payment and closing costs saved. If you're looking to buy a home around the $500,000 mark and you would need $25,000 to $30,000 to close, and you have maybe 45, 50, or 60, I would usually recommend that you pay it yourself out of pocket. You can still ask for those seller's credit, but at that point in time, you have enough savings for emergencies. And shout out to Dave Ramsey here about having an emergency fund. What I disagree with on is that it's $1,000. I think it should be anywhere from 10 to 15 with the way the economy's gone. If you have that on hand, then it usually makes sense to purchase the home out of pocket and then still have that savings account. And then if you want to use a seller's credit, do it, but use it to buy down the rate. So while down payment assistance doesn't always make sense, and specifically today, remember, I am talking specifically about the cal-hfa down payment assistance. You can use it FHA or conventional. And if you get seller's credits, usually you can pay off the entire thing when you use it. But realize it does make sense in certain situations. You just need to understand your goals. If your goal is getting in a home as soon as possible to be able to use that equity, and you're planning on staying in that home for more than 3 to 4 years, then it will make sense. If you're planning on investing and trying to get into your first home and you're not really planning on doing anything else with it, you have to make sure it makes sense. So if your plan is to move into a home and stay there more than 2 to 3 years, this is more of a forever home, something that's going to last you a while that you can live in and dig into. Down payment assistance a lot of the times does make sense because you're looking long-term. Just like with anything in housing, you shouldn't be looking 6 months to a year out. You need to be looking 3 to 5 in order for down payment assistance to make sense. Because usually that's when you've started building enough equity that you can get out of that down payment assistance loan and actually have something to keep on yourself. If you're planning on investing or you have the cash, a lot of the time down payment assistance doesn't make sense because you're able to do it on your own and you are able to buy down that rate or ask for the seller's credit, not just to pay your closing costs, but to help you get that rate lower to afford your monthly payment or even pay your closing costs and keep the rest of your cash in. So if you've been thinking about using down payment assistance and you've held back for any reason, but you want to know more, reach out and schedule an appointment with me below. I'd love to walk you through it with no application, just a consultation, just to understand what you're looking at and if it makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, I will tell you. But if it does, it could be a way to get you into a home now instead of having to wait 1 or 2 or 3 years to get you to a place where you can afford the down payment on your own. So thanks for watching today. If you haven't yet, please hit like, subscribe, make sure to push my content out. I want to help people and I want to help people understand this process, especially when buying a home in California. It is expensive and you need to know exactly what you're getting into before you move on.